Welcome back, aliens. My name is Navin Reddy, and of course, we have our guest here, Ranga, and we'll be talking about cloud. So we started with Docker, then we moved towards Kubernetes, and then we are going up on the cloud. Now, last week we did a live session, but then that was random, and this time we'll go in sequence, and we'll start with very basic, so that if you don't know about cloud, it will make much more sense to you as well. Now, Ranga, I hope you are all set for another live session. This is not live again. Last time we did live, and it was quite fun in your office. I'm still missing that
Absolutely.
office.
It's a nice office. Anybody who's in Hyderabad, whenever you are visiting here, please do come over.
So how should they contact you? Let's say if someone want to meet you, what's the best way to
Yeah.
contact you?
Yeah, I think like sending me an email, I think that would be the best place, ranga@in28minutes.com or in28minutes@gmail.com. Like those would be the two places which I would be like almost checking every day. So that would be the best place to reach out to me.
That's right. And Ranga is an amazing host. So it doesn't matter why you want to meet him, you will enjoy his company. Great. So with that,
Thank
Ranga,
you.
let's get started with cloud, your favorite technology. So let's say if I give you 10 or 1 minute, okay, 10 seconds is a very short time. Let's say if I give you 1 minute to convince someone why they should learn cloud. Come on, there is your pitch.
Yeah. Almost every one of the applications you are running today would be running in the cloud in 5 to 10 years. That's it. Nothing more.
Okay, not even one minute. Okay, now that was short. So doesn't matter which application you are using nowadays. Everything will go on cloud in 5 to 10 years.
Absolutely.
That
So
is
if you
awesome.
look at like whether you're building web applications, whether you're building like mobile applications are a little different. They'll be running on a mobile, like those device-based things are a little different, right? So web applications, machine learning algorithms, or data engineering pipelines, blockchain things, whatever technology which is popular today, finally will get integrated into the cloud eventually.
Right, and that is fun, right? Think about any application when you mentioned blockchain, and it's quite amazing that now whatever we are trying to build, we are doing it on our machine, but then we are finding it very difficult to configure everything physically on the machines. And what if something goes down? It makes sense to deploy the application. If you're building on locally, that's fine, but deploying it on the production, and if it is a cloud, it makes much more sense. But then, what if there are some people who don't know what is cloud? And then we should have started with what is cloud. So, Ranga, again,
Absolutely.
what is cloud?
Yeah, it's very simple, right? Earlier, we used to host applications on our own machines. Like enterprises have their own data centers where they have all the applications deployed to. However, there are a lot of challenges that enterprises face when deciding to have a data center, right? Data center is a physical thing. So let's say I need 1,000 servers or 10,000 servers. I need to buy them ahead of time. I need to, like, if I need them in 3 months, I need to buy them today and have them right with me. And another big challenge that enterprises have is also the fact that the demand on their applications, the load on their applications, it's not constant, right? A lot of us use shopping applications. Typically, on a weekday, you would not use a shopping application at all. Most of the times, during the weekends is when we use them. Or when an IPL match is live is when I would order Swiggy. So at that particular point in time, Swiggy has huge demand. So the demand on the applications also fluctuates with time. And as that fluctuates, my infrastructure needs also will fluctuate. So maybe on a specific time, I would need 10,000 servers. Most of the other times, I would need only 100 servers, right? So when I'm buying 10,000 servers, putting them in my data center, and they are only used in few pockets around the day or few pockets of time around the year, that's not a good investment for businesses as well. So that's where the concept of cloud came in, where instead of actually buying infrastructure ahead of time, you can rent infrastructure. You can say, hey, AWS or hey, Azure, I need a server for 10 minutes. Please give me one. Do my job. Give it back to AWS. And you are only paying for those 10 minutes. So you have the flexibility of getting infrastructure whenever you need and paying only for the time you are making use of the infrastructure. So those are kind of the two main reasons why people go for cloud, why people try and rent infrastructure rather than buy infrastructure.
Yeah, that is awesome. In fact, when you mentioned about buying a data center or setting up a data center, I was thinking about the cost it will take to buy those things,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, even if you want to buy a simple server, you have to go to the hardware store. It will cost you lakhs of rupees, and then you're not even sure what should be your server capacity. Do you want to get
Exactly.
a smaller server or a bigger server? What if you don't have a traffic? Why to
Exactly.
invest so much of money on the server? And what if you are
Absolutely.
doing a sale, right? I mean, no one is using as of now small server works, but what if you want to sell something? What if there is a
Exactly.
huge demand suddenly, and then your server cannot cop up? You just have to run to the hardware store, buy a new server, set it up, but then you lost your time there. So
Exactly.
that
And so imagine a startup, right? So earlier, like whenever you want to do a startup, software-based like something like a
yeah,
SaaS-based thing, right? You need a lot of infrastructure in place before you start to sell, because you don't want to sell and then not have the infrastructure to support it. But today,
right,
it, it makes it very very flexible. Like a startup can focus on just their own software and not on the infrastructure part of things.
true. So
And
that
like
makes
the
sense.
other benefit it is also in terms of the reach you get. Like I mean, it might be easy for a startup in Delhi to set up a data center in Delhi, but typically most of the startups would want to serve customers around the world, and therefore you need to have data centers across the world. Having data centers across the world also is very expensive. You need to
Right.
have different teams, different geographical locations. That's very tough. However, if I'm using any of the cloud platforms today, at a click of a button I can say, okay, I want one server in let's say Belgium, I want one server in United States, I want one server in Sydney. Done.
That's right. So then that's why it's also important, right? You want to reduce the latency for your customers. So having
Absolutely.
multiple data centers makes sense. Cool. And then one more thing, which I'm big fan of cloud, is because of the feature which is pay on the go. So I don't want to pay upfront, right? It makes sense
Exactly.
if customers are using my platform for, let's say, this amount of time, I will only pay that much of money, and that perfectly makes sense. Cool.
Absolutely. Pay as you go is a
With
very important part.
Right. So I'm not sure. Do we also have a prepaid service in cloud? I have not used it as of now, but
uh, I'm not sure, but none of, I mean, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, the popular ones don't have a prepaid service. I mean, you can pay it ahead, but it's going to be like offset against whatever cost you are incurring later. So it's
okay,
like there's no fixed price kind of a thing, right? You can
okay,
say like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, they offer some kind of reserved instances. You can
right.
say, I want to reserve a virtual machine of this
Hmm.
capacity in this region for this period of time. And then, like when you run such kind of a machine, your cost would be offset against that, and you'd get a discount. But there is
Right.
no fixed price saying, okay, just pay $300 and do everything you want.
Right. It will be risky for them as well. What if I want to just run the entire servers? That makes
Exactly,
sense.
exactly,
That,
exactly.
that makes sense. Now, with this, another question comes up because somewhere you mentioned about different cloud services. So, how many cloud services do we have, and what are the popular ones?
Too many cloud services, like almost there are huge number of cloud platforms. However, like if you look at the popular ones, I would say the top three would be AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and Alibaba Cloud, the like IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud are among the other ones which are trying to get popular.
Hey, so before we go ahead, I just because you mentioned Alibaba Cloud, how was the experience? Have you tried it yet? Because I've never went to Alibaba Cloud yet. Have you
I
tried
have
it
not
or?
tried it. I have not tried it, but I've talked to people who have worked with it, and they said the
Okay.
experience is very similar to how it is with AWS. I'm talking about the experience of using it, not the experience of an enterprise, but an experience from the developer
For normal
perspective.
users. Okay.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Makes sense. So there are multiple clouds we can go for, right? And then okay, and the popular ones are, which I heard, is AWS, Azure, and GCP. I have already
right.
worked on AWS and GCP. I've never tried Azure yet. Again, not a big fan of Microsoft, but still, Microsoft is changing, so it's worth a try to
Absolutely.
try Microsoft services. Cool. Now, when I was learning cloud for the first time, To start with, cloud, it's a bit tricky because there are so many terms to remember. I remember when I explored AWS for the first time, and the moment I went to that website, when I saw multiple services, I just closed that button. No, I don't want to look at all the services. I want to keep it something simple. Example, when you go to Google, you don't see all the features, right? You just see Google
Yeah.
search bar and done. But when you go to AWS, looking at all the options, it's a bit tricky. But apart from this, what are the challenges do you see if someone is running a cloud service? What are challenges they
Absolutely.
face?
Absolutely. See, first thing is everybody is overwhelmed when they go to the cloud, because cloud is like the Swiss army knife that you have, right? It can do a lot of things. You can run your web applications, you can run like data science workloads or machine learning workloads or like pipelines. So cloud is very, very vast, and that's what makes it very, very difficult for people to get started, because they don't know where to start. So if I'm saying I'm going to start learning AWS, the question is which part of AWS I'm going to start with. And typically, that's the number one challenge, determining which part of AWS you want to focus on at the start. I think the first question typically is which cloud. The second question is which part of that cloud to get started with. I think the which cloud question, I think we have discussed that extensively in the last video as well. It does not matter. Choose AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. You will do really, really well, because each of them will grow extensively. Which part of the cloud you want to start with depends on your current experience. You need to look at what role you are performing in your specific project, right? So if, let's say, I'm a developer, I'm building applications, I might be, let's say, building Java applications or Spring Boot applications, or I might be testing, or I might be a business analyst, or I might be a project manager, or I might be doing data engineering related things, or I'm working on machine learning. So the recommendation I have for people is to choose the nearest thing for their role. If I'm a developer, I want to learn the cloud, I would start with some of the important compute services. So I would look at how to launch a virtual machine, how to deploy a simple application, and things like that. If I'm a data engineer, then I would look at how to create a database, how to actually create a data pipeline, those kind of things. If I am a business analyst, a non-technical guy, right, a business analyst or like project manager, people who are not technical but they want to get an overview of the cloud, those kind of people can approach it in a different way. They can probably start with one of the cloud certifications, one of the beginner cloud certifications, to get an overview, a big picture of all the concepts of the cloud, right? So you want to understand what is infrastructure as a service, what is platform as a service, what is the difference, when do you go for which one, what are the popular compute services, what are the popular storage services. So that, to get that kind of an idea, you can actually get a cloud certification. But if you are hands-on, if you are a techie, one of the important challenges when you go to the cloud is to get hands-on with it. It's not sufficient if you have a certification. It's very, very important that you deploy. So try and deploy applications to the cloud, so that you would be able to understand it much, much more.
Makes sense. Okay, so maybe I should also revise my cloud concepts now, and it will be easy this time because I have already explored some of them. Great. Now, see, whenever we start with new technology, I mean, cloud being a base now for all different technologies, what are the prerequisites do you think? So, example, if I want to start learning cloud now, what are the things I should know before I start with cloud?
To be really, really frank, anybody can learn the cloud. If you know how to use a computer, if you know like the basic things about an operating system, how to install applications and things like that, if you understand how a computer works, that's more than sufficient for you to get started with the cloud. Because the goal of the cloud providers is to make it easy for anyone to use the cloud, right? If you are in a project where you're using AWS, for example, everybody in the project, whether they're technical or non-technical, should be using AWS. Right? It's not just the developers deploying applications to AWS, but the testers need to know how to see what information they want. Project managers need to be able to plan the infrastructure in AWS, right? So business analysts, finally, their applications are going to run in the cloud. So they need to have a high-level overview of the cloud as well. So it's very, very important for everybody to get an overview of the cloud. And that's where cloud providers make it very, very easy to make sure that anybody and everybody can start learning the cloud. So for me, there are no prerequisites except that you should have some familiarity with using a computer. But if you are looking at technical roles, like if you are looking at roles like programmers or architects, then there would be prerequisites which are related to those specific roles. So if I'm going to be able to, like, if I want a role as a cloud developer, right, then I would need to understand programming really, really well. That's a prerequisite. Before you'd be able to develop applications for the cloud, you should be good at the fundamentals of your role. The same goes for an architect. A lot of people I see actually directly aiming for a solution architect certification without having that experience of being an architect. Right? Certification helps, but having the experience of an architect, making decisions, handling communication between different stakeholders, all those aspects are very, very important. So you need to have the prerequisites related to the role you want to perform in the cloud.
Cool. Now, since you mentioned about certification, so let's say if I want to start with cloud, so how do I start? Should I start with the certification way or being a developer way?
Yeah,
or certification is a
it
good way to
depends
start?
Yeah, it depends on like your experience with the cloud, right? If I have no experience with the cloud, let's imagine you have no experience with the cloud, you don't know anything about AWS, infrastructure as service or serverless, all these are new terms to you. Get started with a beginner certification, right? Each of the cloud platforms have really, really good beginner certifications. AWS has something called AWS Cloud Practitioner. Google Cloud has Google Cloud Digital Leader. AWS, like Azure, has actually 3 beginner certifications. They are called the fundamental certifications, AZ 900, which is beginner certification for anybody who wants to start with Azure. And they also have specific ones. If you are a data engineer and you want to start with Azure, they have a data fundamentals, DP 900. And they also have AI fundamentals for machine learning enthusiasts, AI 900. So any of these certifications is a great starting point. If you have no idea about what is cloud, if you have no idea what is cloud, you want to understand all the important terminology that is associated with the cloud, right? Infrastructure as code, infrastructure as service, platform as a service, DevOps, containers, container orchestration. So there are buzzwords, a lot of buzzwords, and doing any of these certifications will help you to get these buzzwords. However, if you're doing more higher amount of roles, right? So if you want more technical expertise, there are developer certifications, there are data engineering certifications, there are certifications for machine learning. So depending on the role you are performing, there are also specific cloud certifications.
Awesome. So let's say if I start with cloud and if I want to complete the certification, how much time normally it takes? 3 months, 6 months, or?
So the beginner certifications are much more easier. So if you have little bit of experience with computers, I would say the beginner certifications you should be able to complete within 4 to 6 weeks. I think the Azure ones are the really easiest. So AZ 900, for example, you can complete that in a week. Like it will not take more than a week. However, I think Google Cloud Digital Leader would be in between, and AWS Cloud Practitioner, you would need a little bit more time. So maybe 4 to 5 weeks should be good amount of time to get started. However, if you're looking at technical certifications like a developer certification, an architect certification, a data engineer, or a machine learning, those can get really complex. Typically, like if you want to do any of those certifications, I'm looking at something like 8 to 12 weeks, and a lot of experience doing that in the cloud. So experience plus 8 to 12 weeks is what you are looking at for more advanced level certifications.
Okay, makes sense.
But the beginner ones are easy. A lot of people actually don't need the advanced level certifications, right? So a lot of times just having good knowledge on the cloud is more than sufficient. And those kind of certifications, the beginner certifications, you can complete within 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay. So let's say if I start learning cloud, if I have learned the basics of cloud hands-on, and then also have a basic certification which you mentioned, is it enough to get a job, or do we need something extra to get a job in cloud?
Right. I think certification is a great starting point, right? Certification is a great way to demonstrate, especially considering the lack of skills on the cloud, because cloud is still emerging, right? Not a lot of people are experts on the cloud. So certifications are good. However, a big additional bonus will be if you can have projects or GitHub profile where you can demonstrate your expertise with a specific cloud. So if you have deployed a certain set of projects to AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, if you have a good GitHub profile demonstrating all that experience, I think that will be a big bonus on top of the certifications, because then you are not only saying that I'm certified, but you're also saying I have practical experience using it with multiple projects. So build anything, deploy to the cloud, have it on GitHub. I think that's the best way to demonstrate your expertise. I think those two things will be a great starting point. It will enable you to do whatever you're working on. So whatever you're working on right now, you need to demonstrate the ability to be able to do that in the cloud.
Cool. So let's say I have two perspectives here. I mean, two different profiles. So let's say for students and for experienced people. Now, for
Right.
students, what's the right time to start with cloud? I mean, should they start when they are doing programming, or let's say they are doing project in the last year? So when is the right time?
Absolutely. Right. So if you are looking for a technical job profile in the IT industry and you are looking at programming as one of the things you want to get good at, right? So I would say the fundamental skill at any point in time is programming. Cloud is something you can learn at any point in time. Cloud is not mandatory at the start itself. But programming skills, data structures, algorithms, if you're looking for a tech role, those are essential. So focus on them first. After you get a little level, like after you are at a certain level with the programming, you are confident about solving at least basic problems. That's when you can think about the cloud. So don't start with cloud, especially if you're looking at programming kind of roles. I would recommend you to first start with the programming fundamentals and then go towards the cloud. However, if you're a business analyst, or I mean, if you're looking at other kind of non-tech roles, in those kind of situations, you can approach cloud certification just before you are applying for a job or something of that kind, right? So if you're going for a non-tech role, also cloud helps you a lot. If you are a tester, saying that I understand AWS, saying that I understand Azure, it has a lot of value because it differentiates you from other testers, right? So because your application will be running in AWS, your applications might be running in Google Cloud. So that helps you add on a lot more to your profile as well. So if you are aiming for a non-tech roles, just doing the beginner level certification a few months before you apply for a job should be more than sufficient.
Right. That makes sense. Now, for students, that makes sense because having extra skills, specifically with cloud, will always keep you apart. But let's go back to the experienced professionals. So let's say if they are already working in the industry from last 5 to 10 years,
right?
Is it possible for them to learn cloud and switch their profiles?
Absolutely. And that's what is happening today with a lot of people, right? Thousands and thousands of people are switching jobs to the new cloud profiles, right? A lot of them are actually like, they are programmers, they are becoming cloud developers. A lot of people are engineers, they are becoming cloud engineers. A lot of people are running data engineering on local, I mean, in traditional infrastructure, Teradata and things. Today, they are shifting their profile to be able to do the same thing on the cloud. So for experienced people, I think the key is to understand what they're doing and understand what is the best way to do what they're doing in the cloud. I don't want them to completely switch what they're doing and go to something else. I don't want a programmer to become a data engineer, right? That would not be a smooth transition. But a programmer who is building Spring Boot applications can easily learn how to deploy the same thing on the cloud and like enhance his knowledge. Somebody who's doing microservices can learn how to do microservices on the cloud. So that's the kind of switch I would recommend. Like if you are an experienced developer, you have no idea about the cloud, do one of the beginner cloud certifications, then go and do one of the advanced cloud certifications, right? So developer certifications or architect certifications, and then work out how to do whatever you are doing right now in the cloud. The certifications give you the base knowledge. Use that knowledge to deploy whatever you are learning, whatever you are doing right now in the cloud. So it's a mix of certifications plus hands-on skills. You should know how whatever you're doing works in the cloud. So those two things will be essential for you to migrate to the cloud.
Right. Now, when you talk about cloud, there's one thing which always pops up with cloud, which is DevOps. And of course, we can have a different discussion. What is DevOps, and then how do you differentiate between the normal team and DevOps team? But let's say if we talk about DevOps, and if someone wants to work into cloud, is cloud enough, or they have to learn DevOps with cloud? And how do you differentiate between cloud and DevOps?
Absolutely. I think that's a very, very important question. And also a lot of people have that question. A lot of people who are actually trying, like, I'm a developer, should I go towards DevOps or cloud? Like that's kind of, the way I see it is like DevOps is nothing but getting better at building software, right? So that's DevOps. The role of DevOps is to improve the process. It's similar to Agile, like all Agile DevOps. I put them in the same space kind of, right? Cloud is basically the platform where you deploy the application, right? So earlier it was the data center, today it's the cloud. So you can do DevOps whether you have applications in your data center. You can improve how you build applications, whether you are having applications in your data center or whether you have applications in the cloud. Either way, you can do DevOps. But if you don't know anything about DevOps, you don't know anything about cloud, you want to start learning, I would recommend you to start with the cloud first, because once you learn the cloud, you would see that doing DevOps in the cloud is much easier than doing DevOps in a data center, because cloud provides a lot of services. Like if you go to AWS, there are services like AWS Code Build, Code Pipeline, lot of them, right? So they make it very, very easy to do DevOps. You can learn DevOps much faster in the cloud rather than on your local machine. So I would recommend you to start learning cloud first and then add the related skills that you would need for DevOps on top of it.
That makes sense. So this was also a discussion on cloud, and then of course I want to know more about specific to different types of cloud. Things are different when you talk about cloud, right? So AWS have a different feature, Azure have a different feature,
right.
And in terms of certification as well, they are quite different. And of course, we can't do all this thing in one video. So let's make a specific video for each technology. Let's focus on AWS
Absolutely.
next time, and then we'll shift to GCP and then Azure. And also, if you have a request, everyone, make sure that you put that in comment section, because we do read your comment and we will put that question for the next episode. This recording will be available next week. So, I mean, this is what, 22nd. We'll post that video next week, and maybe you will be enjoying this here. So that's it from the first session on cloud, Ranga, and we did that within 28 minutes. That's important. So, so see you next time, specific to some technology. And thank you so much, Ranga, for joining. See you next time.
Thanks a lot, Naveen.
And everyone, do check out both the channels. You will find the link of In 28 Minutes in the description. And for this channel, of course, if you have not subscribed and click on the bell icon, do that. Bye-bye.
Bye.